Kawasaki is bringing the Versys 1000 back to the market for 2025. Already familiar to many, but now with an update, we have more displacement, more power, more torque, and some additional features. How all of this performs on the road and what it all means, we'll see shortly. Go wherever you want is Kawasaki's slogan for the new Versys 1100, essentially the all-purpose machine for any use. The new bike presents itself with several modifications, as already mentioned, now featuring a slightly larger displacement of 1,100 cubic centimeters. The well-known four-cylinder engine has been slightly modified, giving us 135 horsepower and 112 Newton meters of torque. This is matched against a wet weight of 255 to 260 kilograms, depending on the chosen equipment. Kawasaki aims to take the new Versys 1100 and secure their position once again, particularly in the touring segment where there are several other competitors. That's why they decided to go one step further and introduce a few more updates. Many of you are probably familiar with the Versys 1000. It's not too far removed from the well-known 1000, but it does come with some modifications. Let's quickly go over what those are. It's best to start with the heart of the bike, the engine. As mentioned earlier, the engine has gained a bit more displacement. We're now at nearly 1100 cubic centimeters, which was achieved by increasing the stroke by 3 millimeters. This naturally also increased the compression ratio. The cylinder head had to be raised slightly to make room for the longer stroke, so the piston wouldn't collide at the top. The compression ratio is now 11.3. This is particularly beneficial for torque-oriented riding. In fact, one of Kawasaki's main focuses with the Versys 1100 update was to improve torque, dynamic performance, and the engine's overall flexibility. They've also made some modifications to the valve timing adjustments in the valve opening angles to improve torque and performance, especially at lower RPMs. With 135 horsepower and 112 Newton meters of torque, the engine is already quite powerful, especially for a motorcycle that isn't necessarily ridden only in the high RPM range like a sport bike. In this segment, I want to have plenty of power and punch available at lower RPMs, and that's exactly what this is aimed at. They've also refined the engine further by adding a bit more flywheel mass, resulting in a smoother operation and a more balanced ride, enhancing overall riding comfort. Additionally, the primary and secondary gear ratios have been adjusted to ensure that in the higher gears, you're not revving too much while cruising at normal speeds. When you're cruising at around 100 kilometers per hour, you don't want the engine to be revving at excessively high RPMs, especially in this segment. They've designed it so that at 100 kilometers per hour, the engine runs at around 4,000 revolutions per minute. That's exactly where the engine really starts to deliver its power, but we'll go into more detail about that in the riding impressions. Let's move on to the next point, the electronics. Nowadays, electronics are practically indispensable in our modern bikes. We have several features here, as you'd expect from many other models. There are different riding modes, ABS and traction control systems. Basically, all the features that that modern motorcycles should have to stay competitive. Everything is clearly displayed on the screen. Now let's briefly cover the differences between the three variants, the Standard, the S and the SE. The S model comes with several additional features compared to the Standard, notably the quick shifter and blipper. And it also has an adjustable windscreen, hand guards, different riding modes that the Standard model doesn't offer, and smartphone connectivity, which is also absent in the Standard model. The SE, on the other hand, has even more to offer compared to the S, including an adjustable electronic suspension, which is a big highlight and adds a lot of versatility. Through the display, you can easily select different suspension settings, even customizing them. This means you have an additional mode on the SE where you can individually adjust the rebound, compression and preload settings independently based on the rider's preference. For those who don't want to tweak these settings themselves, there are preset modes. The three pre-configured modes are Sport, Road and Rain. With this setup, you can easily select the desired mode without having to make any adjustments yourself, as the pre-selected presets are automatically applied in the background. It's worth noting that the ABS system is not switchable or adjustable. Additionally, heated grips are included, although for the Standard model they are available only as an optional extra. Now, quick word about the ergonomics. The standard seat height for the bike is 840 millimeters, which should be comfortable for taller riders. For those who are shorter and want more contact with the ground, there is the option of choosing a lower seat, which reduces the seat height to 820 millimeters. This offers shorter riders better ground contact and stability. Overall, the ergonomics are well designed. With the distance to the handlebars is very comfortable while still maintaining a sporty feel. You get good feedback and the knee angle isn't too extreme, allowing for longer rides without discomfort or foot fatigue. There's also a small change in the braking system. The rear brake disc diameter has been increased by 10 millimeters. So now it's a 260 millimeter disc, which should help reduce the amount of pressure needed on the brake pedal to achieve effective deceleration. Now, the most important point, how does the bike ride? Thanks to the generously sized windscreen, you get excellent wind protection, which is especially noticeable at higher speeds. Up to around 180 to 190 kilometers per hour, there's almost no wind pressure. What's particularly impressive is that there are hardly any wind turbulences, so your head stays very stable. This makes for a much more comfortable ride. Even at high speeds, you don't have to struggle against these wind turbulences. You can sit completely relaxed even at high speeds with a clear view ahead. And the height of the windscreen is adjustable, and you can raise or lower it as needed. I mostly rode with it in the lower position because the wind protection was already excellent. Despite the great wind protection, I could easily look over the screen with my height of around 180 centimeters. This is an important point for me because looking through a windscreen can sometimes cause visibility issues, especially when it gets dirty. It can become difficult to see details on the road or at the roadside. I really liked that about this bike. With this screen in the lower position, you get top-notch wind protection while still having a clear view ahead, allowing you to easily spot any irregularities on the road. Another feature I really appreciated was the quick shifter with blipper functionality. In the past, there were sometimes issues with very rough shifting, especially with blippers, which could cause a strong jolt when downshifting. But here, everything works incredibly smoothly. It's not just the quick shifter itself, but also the gearbox, which plays a big role in making sure the gears engage smoothly and securely. Combined with the well-tuned thumb throttle blip function, shifting is very smooth both up and down, making it a real pleasure. One small drawback is that the shift lever connected to the sensor feels a bit soft, making the shifting feel a little vague. However, this isn't a big issue because gear changes are still so clean and smooth that you quickly develop a good feel for the shifting, making it fun to switch gears. As for the engine, I have to say it's well executed. It's a very powerful engine with 2 stages where it adjusts or releases more power from idle up to 4,000 RPM. It revs up smoothly with minimal vibrations, very silky, I must say. At 4,000 RPM, it gives an extra boost of power, and things really start to pick up speed. Between 6,000 and 8,000 RPM, it delivers its full performance. So for those who want serious power, this engine with its over 130 horsepower definitely delivers. It accelerates very well at that point. However, you do need to make sure that you're in the 6,000 to 8,000 RPM range to get the most out of it. The limiter kicks in around 10,000 RPM, so you still have some room to rev higher, though performance starts to taper off after that. The sweet spot is really between 6,000 and 8,000 RPM. That said, you can ride completely relaxed at low RPMs. For example, you can cruise through town in 6th gear at 2,000 RPM, and it will smoothly accelerate from low revs without any hiccups, transitioning into a steady pull without any fuss. I personally might wish for a bit more power overall, especially considering it's a 1,100cc engine. These days, it's possible to squeeze out a few more horsepower from 1,100cc. But for this segment, where power isn't everything, it's fair to say that you always have enough power available. Light vibrations only begin to appear at higher revs, around 6,000 RPM, depending on the load. They're not bothersome, though. Kawasaki has also added heavy handlebar weights to help reduce vibrations at the bars, and the foot pegs come with rubber inserts to further cut down vibrations, adding to the overall comfort. In the lower RPM range, you don't notice any vibrations at all. It runs like clockwork, smooth as silk. Only at higher RPMs does a slight buzzing sensation start, but it's not really a problem. Today we covered over 300 kilometers, and I have to say it worked very well. And in case you're wondering where all the water came from, we were just caught off guard by a rain shower, which forced us to take a short break. But let's continue now with the bike's dynamics and how the weight, which is close to 260 kilograms, affects things. You really only feel the weight when handling the bike at a standstill, like when pulling it onto the center stand or maneuvering it through tight turns. At a standstill, you notice it a bit, but as soon as you start moving, the weight practically disappears. Thanks to the well thought out geometry, the bike feels incredibly nimble. It's very easy to flick the bike from one lean to the other without needing much effort, and the seating ergonomics definitely help with that. The knee angle is not extreme, and the reach to the handlebars is very easy, making it, as I mentioned before, very easy to handle. Importantly, this ease of handling doesn't result in instability, which is a key point. Often bikes with very nimble handling can become unstable, up to about 170 kilometers per hour. The bike feels incredibly planted and precise. Above 170 though, you start to notice some lightness in the front wheel, especially when under heavy load, which introduces a bit of instability. Though it's not critical, it feels a bit softer, but you can still push through it, maintaining good lean angles even at those speeds without it becoming unsafe. We rode the bike with the optional luggage system installed, and it's worth noting that the luggage system as well as the additional side mounted lights are available as optional extras. The bike also comes with cornering lights, which aren't part of the optional auxiliary lights but are integrated into the side fairings. These lights improve visibility by illuminating the inside of the turn better when cornering. We couldn't test this feature extensively since we were riding in bright daylight and not under ideal weather conditions for that. As for the gearing, I think they've done a good job with the adjustments. As mentioned earlier, at 100 kilometers per hour, the engine runs at about 4,000 revolutions per minute, which is right where the engine starts to add a little extra punch. It's not running at excessively high RPMs though, so I think the balance they've struck between performance and engine revs is well done, especially in terms of how the engine delivers its power. At 200 kilometers per hour, the engine is running at around 8,000 revolutions per minute, which means even at these high speeds, likely to be enjoyed mostly by our friends in Germany, you're still not close to the rev limiter. As mentioned, the limiter only kicks in at 10,000 RPM, so you still have room to go beyond that. This covers most of the new features, but as briefly mentioned earlier, there will be smartphone connectivity in the future. We didn't have access to this feature on the current models, but it's expected to be implemented in the coming weeks. For more information, Kawasaki or your trusted dealer will have the details. Exciting features are coming, including voice control. You'll be able to say, "Hey Kawasaki," similar to voice assistants in the automotive world, and get key information. If Bluetooth connectivity is enabled, the responses will be played directly into your helmet speakers. What I also appreciated on today's longer ride was the inclusion of cruise control, which adds a lot of comfort. You can set or confirm your current speed, and the cruise control maintains it steadily, making the ride more relaxing, especially for your right hand on long highway stretches. It certainly emphasizes the touring capabilities of this bike. In conclusion, the motorcycle is really impressive. It's a bike for many applications, though it's fair to say its strengths are still mainly on the asphalt. With 17-inch wheels, both front and rear, the bike offers more road grip, especially on pavement. A larger front wheel sometimes causes a bit of a vague feeling on very grippy asphalt, but that's not the case here. The smaller tire cross sections, typically used on large front wheels, can also contribute to this issue. But again, it's not a problem with this bike. There's no sign of the shimmy effect, a slight wobbling of the handlebars when you let go, often seen with the larger front wheels between 60 and 90 kilometers per hour. The bike feels very stable on the road. Fitted with Bridgestone T31 tires as standard, the bike handles well and reinforces its touring character. While there are tires with more grip, these are a solid choice for touring. Overall, the bike has left a very good impression on me. There may be a few minor points for improvement that Kawasaki could consider in the future. For instance, the large USB port we have mounted up front could be refined. I'm not sure if you can see it, but the USB port is mounted very loosely and it starts to wobble during the ride. It's also quite oversized considering how small a USB plug is. So a more elegant and refined solution would be nice here. The switch for the heated grips is also a bit wobbly and starts to shake slightly while riding. However, it still works perfectly for controlling the heated grips. And you can easily tell if they are active by the background lighting. It would be great if this information could also be displayed on the main screen. Aside from that, I must say, you can really go on long rides with this bike. Let's briefly touch on the electronic suspension, again, which really impressed me, especially with its wide range of adjustments. In sportier settings, I noticed that the suspension becomes quite firm. It's very precise for cornering quickly without much movement, but on bumpy surfaces, it becomes a bit harsh and is probably too stiff for most riders. However, with just a few adjustments, you can easily switch to the softer settings. And I customized it in the adjustable mode, reducing the compression damping entirely on both the front and rear. This worked really well on rough surfaces, providing a high level of comfort. The suspension absorbed the bumps effectively, and you could still ride the bike briskly without it becoming too loose or unstable. So, let's get to the final point. What does this bike cost? In Austria, I'll have to double check, but the bike will cost around 18,500 euros. We're talking about the SE version, the top spec model. As mentioned, there are some additional accessories available, but the prices for those haven't been finalized yet. Kawasaki will release them soon. In Germany, the bike costs 17,700 euros. If you're looking for something a bit cheaper because money is a bit tight, but you still want this bike in your garage, you can opt for the standard or S version, which is in between. The standard version, for example, costs 15,150 euros in Austria, which is quite a bit less. I think this makes the bike very appealing to many riders as the price-performance ratio becomes quite attractive. So that's all from me here in Spain, rainy Spain this time. I hope I was able to give you a bit of an overview. Enjoy the winter season, and maybe I'll see you at one of the upcoming tests. Until then, have fun, take care, and see you next time.